Tell us about this report that published last week from Bloomberg.
Last week, Bloomberg reported that in Abilene, Texas, which is OpenAI and Oracle's flagship Stargate site, that those two companies were not planning to expand beyond 1.2 gigawatts at the site. And as you know, that's a site being developed by Crusoe. So, my phone sort of started blowing up. A lot of people were talking about, if the demand for compute is so high, why aren't they expanding? And what we learned, sort of more the backstory of that site, and it's really interesting. Right now the site has two buildings. It's going to scale to eight, which will give it that 1.2 gigawatts. And so the story was really that beyond eight and beyond the commitments that have already been made, OpenAI and Oracle wouldn't be expanding further. So it's a little bit of a tricky timeline to understand, but yeah, people were very shocked and asking a lot of questions last week.
And to be clear, one of those people blowing up your phone was me. I texted you saying, "Oh my gosh, this seems like the biggest deal in the world." I mean, we've been looking for any kind of setback in the data center build out, and this was one data point that seemed scary in many ways, certainly because we've seen how much the stocks fluctuate on the news. What is the core reason here that we understand the setback to have occurred?
So this one's really interesting. So this is an example of a company considering expanding at a very large site and then deciding not to expand at that very large site. So in this case, OpenAI and Oracle have already committed to 1.2 gigawatts in Abilene, and they decided not to take that up to 2 gigawatts. Oracle was an obvious choice for Crusoe to be talking to about the expansion because they're the existing tenant in Abilene. And so Oracle then was trying to see if OpenAI wanted to take it. And what we learned is that in the past couple of months, the infrastructure team at OpenAI realized that the expansion, which is roughly you could say 600 megawatts of IT load for GPUs, wouldn't be ready for Nvidia's Blackwell GPUs, which are getting shipped right now. So basically, by the time the expansion would be ready, Nvidia would already be shipping newer generation chips. And we learned that OpenAI does not want to mix newer generation chips at its large scale campuses, for Blackwell chips. They'd rather just keep those Vera Rubins for another site. And now, what we learned this weekend was that even when OpenAI said that they didn't want to expand in Abilene, Oracle was talking to another customer about taking the site. And then last weekend, Oracle decided not to move forward. So we're still trying to learn more about that, but that is what we know as to why OpenAI and Oracle didn't move forward.
So just to recap here, so basically we know that Oracle and OpenAI, they were planning to expand the facility. It was going to take too long for this build out to happen. It became clear that there would be a mix of chips in this facility. Some would be Blackwell, some would be Vera Rubin, and that's kind of at the heart of this. But the thing that I'm hoping you can explain, Anissa, is why is it so bad to have a mix of chips? Because we live in this climate where I mean, Nvidia is coming out with chips every year, and we still have people that are getting use out of their old A100 chips and the Hopper family, and I mean, let alone Blackwell.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's one thing we definitely want to learn more about. This could be an OpenAI specific preference, and perhaps other companies, including Oracle, aren't that concerned about it. Oracle obviously was going to keep moving forward on the site. And they were courting another customer who was interested. So this might be something specific to OpenAI. I would also say that timing these things with chip generations is very hard, and I'm sure this is not the first example of companies kind of looking into multiple options for their deployments and then not maybe going with everything that they looked at. So in this case, OpenAI must have line of sight into other data centers where it wants to put its Vera Rubin chips. And, maybe it has a site where it can actually expand even larger than the Abilene expansion. So I think this is tricky, and every company is dealing with it. And it's not necessarily a sign that OpenAI's demand for compute is slowing or anything like that.
And last question for you on this topic. So we don't know anything about who might fill that gap for Oracle at all, do we?
We do. And so Oracle, after last weekend, their period of exclusivity to be the tenant ended. And A very familiar face, Nvidia, stepped in. So Nvidia had been working with Oracle and the developer on the site to set up those expansion buildings for their next advanced chips. And so when Oracle stepped back, Nvidia had a clear incentive to keep the project going. And so Nvidia is now in that period of exclusivity with Crusoe, and they put down a $150 million deposit to hold the site. And now they're going after potential customers. We know they're talking to multiple parties and everything's at a very early stage, but that Meta is one of the customers they're talking to.